events. We have a different view of what current events is. We understand that your current events are reflected in your news media for the most part. So, a certain amount of trust was built up and maintained by your news feeds, whether they be recognized names and reputations of your outlets for media, news, information, and you also, with your internet technology, have had the opportunity to create new and different platforms for releasing data and information. What is true and what is not true? There is truth contained in every shred of news, and that is why people are getting increasingly confused as to what to believe is happening out there in your outer world. While it is understood that receiving news about the state of the collective, whether that be in your neighborhood, your city, your state, your country, your planet, it is all based on interpretation. Now, what many of you are beginning to do is to discern the information, the data that comes into your senses, and a decision is made as to whether you resonate or not with what is being offered. Now, many of you have developed your skills enough to recognize where there are little glimmers of truth embedded in a piece of information. And the rest does not resonate. This is good. This is a new level of your discernment. You are able to see that there is an intentional, sometimes, movement to embed some truth into campaigns that are motivated primarily to confuse. So the formula contains a tiny bit of truth within untruth, primarily untruth. So, what to do? If you have not developed these abilities to recognize this, and you are still receiving your information from your regular news sources as well as the growing number of alternative, as you refer to them, news sources. And many of you do get frustrated when we say and when others say that you do contain all of the information that you require to live your lives within your own consciousness. You have been accustomed to reaching for the knob or the remote control to click it on and begin streaming your data and entertainment through a screen, through audio files coming from outside to in. This is what you are accustomed to. This is not a judgment. It is a statement of how the collective has developed under the conditions that you have found yourselves within. Now, how to switch over to receiving your data and information from within your own consciousness, which includes your physicality. This is something that you have been conditioned to ignore, to judge, and to fear. And that is primarily feelings. We are not speaking of emotions here. We're speaking of feelings. Now, more and more have been sharing via your internet and sometimes in physical proximity what you have gathered in data, in news from your own technologies within. And you share them through the platform of blogging, radio shows on your internet, shared audio files such as what we are doing with this particular work. These are almost equally as confusing. We do understand. But more often than not, they are confusing due to the fact that humans have not made this re-identification from outer to inner. So resonation with the data that is coming from one of the fractals, one of the awakening fractals, shards of consciousness that have tapped into these streams of data that are available for all. And it is translated into language which does indeed reduce it into a more linear explanation. We do understand that this is confusing as well, but it is confusing for different reasons. The outer news, with bits of truth included in mass disinformation intentionally, is very different from a shard of consciousness beginning to remember and reconnect and re-identify with universal consciousness, universal presence, source. The mind, the intellect searches for key words, key phrases, key names in which to feel comfortable. Your mass disinformation system is very well aware of this. So certain words and phrases are given under the guise of this is very spiritual, this is prophetic, this is very important for you to understand and act upon. Notice what you are feeling anytime you are communicating with someone in real time or you are hearing a broadcast from the past. You must, in this timing, be able to discern what is true and what is not true. We recommend that all of your news broadcasts, especially those that you can reference from the past that are still in your present, we recommend letting go. For this is an addiction that is not consciously noticed by humanity. There are loops of disinformation occurring, and it is growing. We therefore recommend the unplugging of these news posts that feel like same old, as you say. Turn them off. Do not take it in. We have always recommended that you sit down and you begin to tune in by way of your feelings, which connects you to universal streaming of data. We have emphasized this in many, many, many previous messages. We have been excited and overjoyed to be of assistance at this time in your evolutionary leap, as you say, in consciousness, in your spiritual awareness of who you are and your capacities. We want to encourage you to discover the stream of data within yourselves. The first step in achieving this is to unplug from the past in all ways, for it truly does not exist. You are keeping your past and your past ways alive and in perpetuation simply by looking outside of yourselves for your information. Looking outside of yourselves to inform you of who you are and what you want. It was done so well, so brilliantly, might we add, that it is still most of collective humanity on the planet is unaware of this technology, yet it waits to be received, to be utilized. It is pure love, and this is how you recognize it. How do you recognize pure love? You must know what you feel so that you may ultimately feel what you know. Know thyself. Capital letters. If you know what you are feeling in this moment, truthfully, that is the stream. That is the river that is inviting you to swim within. It is not far away. It is not decades from now. It is now. There is no waiting to access streaming from your prime source, from the universal source. This is part of the disinformation campaign. Notice when predictions are being tossed about what will come next year, next month, next decade, next century. These are tricks. Now, we understand in your language these references must be made for the sentences to make sense in the paragraphs and the piece that is being shared. So it is not always intentional to disinform the public. But sometimes understand that these phrases must be used so that it can show up on your radar, so that you can even perceive the message that wants to be shared. You see, your technology, your data, your information is not in words. So when you must refer to translations from other shards of consciousness, there are triggers in that information that has come from streaming technology, universal streaming technology. There is more truth there in feeling than there is in the facts and figures and linear approach or intellectual approach to understanding. So, it is important, as we have been stating, for each individual to discover this within themselves. Now, at some point, each and every one of you will have what many of you refer to as a meltdown. And from our view, a meltdown is the melting of the framework, the context in which you have all developed very carefully over time. And this context and framing is developed mostly through conditioning, whether that is in your families or in your cultures, in your countries, your nations. your religions, your politics. It is all designed to keep you encased within this system that you are informed is freedom, and it is in fact not freedom at all. Many of you, for the most part, have only received glimpses of truth. And you would in the end refer to it as a crazy mystical experience, or I was taken by these strange beings and I was on a spaceship and crazy, crazy stuff. What did you learn? If these contactees do speak truthfully and courageously, they will let you know that nothing was received or taken in or comprehended with the intellect. It is later that the intellect kicks in and has been trained to reduce this expansive new experience and understanding into language and into existing context and framing. This is where it gets confusing. This is why we have emphasized many times and continue to emphasize now that when you are listening to messages such as these, your feeling nature must be active. There must be an ongoing intent to leave, depart from the smaller practice of intellect in this 3D realm, and to acclimate, adapt to your feeling language, your feeling, knowing, understanding. This is where your data resides. Notice when this type of information is presented to you, how you react to it. If you are frustrated because you are not perceiving enough intellectual data, logic, facts, in order to keep your interest, because that is what you are used to receiving, then you will not comprehend the spherical nature of this wisdom. There is an infinite amount of data that is available to you. And it comes in, as you have referred to, the spaces in between your words. Now, the new, as we say, new to you, forms of mediumship and communion, referred to as channeling in the past, and we refer to it as communion, quantum communion at this time, there is a switching on of this new pathway, this wide open pathway with your heart consciousness to perceive data that does not need to be reduced to words for you to understand. you have the capacity, every one of you, to absorb this field of data, of wisdom, of love. You absorb it through your skin, through your bones, your blood. All of your wiring is in place to instantaneously understand. So, we would say that even though there are words streaming through in this particular human and quantum communion with human, we are only doing so temporarily so that we may show up on your radar. You will find that once we sense that this is being employed by more and more humans in this fashion, this direct quantum communion, there will be no need for words. It does not mean that words are bad. Words can be very beautiful, as in poetry and lyrics, story. It is simply that your comprehension capacity is so much greater than you were told. So we are here to encourage you to kick this into gear. Now, there are tools, there are suggestions that we would have for how to begin this very active attention and presence so that you may switch that light on for yourselves in a more regular fashion. As we said before, some of you get glimpses and then you call it crazy with a word and it is destroyed. It goes nowhere after this. So just be aware that when you do receive these feeling glimpses directly, be very, very careful how you label it. It need not be labeled. You may just refer to it as inspiration and love. And perhaps you may put into words how you have been changed by it and how you are now living your life differently as a result. This way, this kind of resonant information can enter the masses and be available as food for the heart, for the soul. To stay in balance, even though all around it appears, and through your misinformation, disinformation, you are kept in these loops believing that the world is going to end and you will all die or suffer, or the government will seize further control, etc., etc., etc. This is not the truth. Do you get that? Let it go. And reconnect with your own direct call line to your source. It is available. Now, if you refuse this bit of information that is coming through one of the shards of consciousness on planet Earth, in a quantum communion blending with the more of who she is and the more of who all of you are. If you refuse this data, that is your choice. That is your privilege. You may choose what you allow into your context, into your worldview. That is your freedom to do so. So, we will leave you with this message. If you are prepared to step up and to receive the rest of your capacities, we encourage you to be stating this out loud, to be asking for assistance from your own guides, your own group collective consciousness that you are connected to. Make it clear, very clear what you intend. For you will be the humanity that Mother Earth, Gaia, new dimensional realities will be instantaneously available to you. You will not even remember all of this business about fear and enslavement and pain and suffering. Do you hear this? This is the way that many of your great spiritual teachers were sharing with you. But the language and the collective consciousness at the time could not fully take that in for many reasons. And now it is time. We love you. We will continue to share in words for as long as we feel, perceive that it is necessary. And when it is no longer necessary, we will meet you in the field of love. And we will all laugh together and remember and welcome the fullness of your being. We are celebrating with you. We have been celebrating with you. We continue to celebrate with you because we are you. And you will know what this means when you open to your own source connection. It is not a mystery. It is only a mystery because you have been conditioned to sever that direct connection. Please understand that it is not difficult. It is simply a matter of attention and intention. We love you dearly. Good day.